He's going to have to dog walk Shedeur Sanders, like I've been saying the whole time.
But Deshaun was treated badly, and now he has to overcome another obstacle.
Mary Kay Cabot just said something about Deshaun Watson's arm that nobody expected to hear this early. Not a benching, not a trade rumor, his shoulder, the one he had surgically repaired. And in the same week, while Shedeur Sanders is out here taking over practice reps, the guy who's supposedly fighting Watson for the job went on camera and said he's praying for him. No shade, no shots, just respect. So which is it? Is this camp turning into a real problem for Watson's arm? Or are we watching two guys handle a business rivalry the right way? Let's get into it. Here's where this all starts. Todd Monken has been running this quarterback competition since the day he took the job, and for most of the offseason program, the read from everybody around the building was that Deshaun Watson had the edge. Cabot said it herself on her own podcast. It felt definitive. Watson was ahead, and that was that. Then, mandatory minicamp opened, and the very first practice, the guy getting the bulk of the first-team reps wasn't Watson. It was Shedeur Sanders. That's not a small detail. In a quarterback competition, who lines up with the ones on day one of mandatory camp tells you where the coaching staff's head is at that exact moment. Cabot herself said she doesn't think there's another way to read it. Shedeur got hot minicamp, and unlike the earlier flip-flopping between the two guys, he didn't hand momentum back to Watson right away. So now you've got a shift, not a decision, a shift. And shifts in a quarterback battle get people talking, especially when the guy who was supposedly out in front starts showing signs of wearing down at the exact moment the other guy is heating up. Because that's the other half of what Cabot brought up. She didn't just talk about Shedeur's minicamp, she brought up Watson needing rest, actual rest, going into a break before training camp starts. And when you put those two things next to each other, a rookie contract quarterback rising and a 9-year veteran suddenly needing a breather, people are going to ask questions. This is also the first time all offseason that Cabot has said anything close to critical about Watson. Most of the coverage from her side had been about Shedeur's rough throws, Shedeur's picks, Shedeur's still learning the offense. Watson had mostly been untouched. So when the tone shifts even a little, and it's coming from someone who has not been hard on Watson all camp, that carries weight. Now here's the part that actually made people stop scrolling. It wasn't just that Watson needs rest, it was why.
The player taking most of the first team reps on that day, on the first day of mandatory minicamp, was Shedeur Sanders. I just thought that was significant. I don't think there's any other way to slice it. I think that in that moment that they felt that he had an opportunity to seize the moment and show what he could do.
Hold on before you assume this means Watson's job is already gone. It's a lot more specific than that. Watson's issue isn't his read progression or his decision-making, it's the arm itself. Cabot's exact words were that Watson's arm seemed to tail off as camp went on. Not his accuracy in general, not his understanding of the offense, his arm. She floated that he might be dealing with the slightest bit of fatigue in that surgically repaired shoulder, the same shoulder that hasn't handled this much football work since before the operation. Think about what that means logistically. Watson tore his Achilles, not once, but twice, and before that, he had shoulder surgery that limited how much he could throw in previous camps. So this offseason program is genuinely the first time in a long stretch that shoulder has been asked to do a full slate of 2-hour practices, throwing the bulk of the reps, without the team pulling him back or shutting him down early. That's a lot to put on a joint that's already been operated on, and it's started to show. Watson had one practice in minicamp that got described as rough across the board. He threw a pick near the end zone, he put multiple throws in the dirt, almost as many as the completions he strung together that day. Early on in OTAs, he looked sharp. Some of his best throws of the whole offseason came in that first week, but as the reps piled up, the ball started sailing low. Now here's where it gets tricky for Cleveland. Watson is about to head to South Florida for a passing retreat with a group of the skill players, guys like Isaiah Bond, Denzel Boston, Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fannin. That's more throwing, more volume right after the concern about his arm tailing off was raised. If the shoulder is genuinely fatigued, a passing retreat isn't rest, it's more of the same stress, just somewhere warmer. And camp hasn't even started. Camp means pads, means live reps, means a schedule that doesn't slow down for anybody. If Watson is already needing a breather during a voluntary off-season program, the obvious question is what happens when the Browns hit the part of the calendar where there's no such thing as a scaled-back day. This is the tension right now. Watson has 9 years of experience. He's run this style of offense before under Bill O'Brien in Houston, and he and Monken reportedly speak the same football language, so there's less of a learning curve for him schematically. But experience doesn't throw the ball. The arm does. And right now, the arm is the thing being talked about.
Maybe he got the slightest bit of fatigue in his surgically repaired shoulder. It hasn't had this much work, I don't think, since before the surgery.
Here's
How
the
are you going to get
reality
through training
check
camp?
nobody wants to say out loud. If a 9-year veteran on a fully guaranteed deal can't get through a voluntary offseason program without his arm wearing down, that's not a small footnote. That's the whole competition. This is where the stakes get raised even higher, because it's not just about who wins the starting job in September. It's about what happens to Watson's career after this. He's due to hit free agency, and if he loses this competition to a rookie on a 5th-round deal, his value on the open market takes a hit no matter how the Browns spin it. That's the blunt version of it. A veteran who can't hold off a second-year quarterback isn't walking into his next contract with much leverage. And that's exactly why the language around this camp has gotten so direct. The take going around is that Watson doesn't just need to beat Shedeur, he needs to beat him clearly, not a close battle decided by a coin flip in August, a real, visible gap, because anything closer than that opens the door for Monken to make the call that keeps this franchise moving forward, instead of running it back with a quarterback who hasn't been consistently healthy or productive in years. That's a brutal spot to be in during a contract year, especially with a brand new offensive line in front of you. Cleveland is breaking in new pieces up front, which usually means more protection adjustments, more checks at the line, more responsibility on the quarterback to get the group into the right look before the snap. Watson has the experience to handle that part. Nobody's questioning his ability to read a defense or make checks at the line. He's been doing that for years, and it's part of why he got this contract in the first place. But recognizing a blitz and actually delivering the ball accurately under the same stress are two different skills, and right now, one of those two things is in question. If the shoulder can't hold up through camp, all the experience in the world doesn't matter because he won't be on the field long enough to use it. Meanwhile, Shedeur doesn't have that same baggage. He's not walking in with an operated-on shoulder or 2 Achilles tears behind him. He's got his own learning curve with a new offense, sure, and there have been rough throws from him too over the course of the spring, but he's not the one being talked about in terms of needing to sit out practices to protect his body. That difference alone changes how each of these guys is being evaluated heading into camp, even before a single pad is put on. So when people say Watson has to dog-walk this competition to keep his job, that's not just a hot take for engagement. It's connected directly to his next contract, his health, and whether this franchise decides it's finally time to move on.
He's going to have to dog walk Shedeur Sanders. Like I've been saying the whole time, he's going to have to come in here, definitively dog walk Shedeur Sanders, be it. It can't be close. Like I've been saying, it can't be close. She just said that with just fancier words. It can't be close. He's got to dog walk him, and that's it. Because he's out next year. He's an older quarterback. He sucked the last 6 years.
Now stay with me here, because this is where the story could have turned ugly between these two guys competing for the same job. It didn't. While all of this arm and shoulder talk was circulating, the other side of this camp put out a completely different kind of clip. Not a hot take about who's cooked or who's dog-walking who. A message of support aimed directly at Watson. The quote was simple. Talking about the way fans have reacted to Watson's rough stretch in Cleveland, the message was that he was treated badly, and now he's got another obstacle to overcome on top of it. Instead of piling on, the response was to lift him up, to say he sees the way Watson fights, the way he works, and that he knows who Watson is both as a person and as an NFL quarterback. Then it went a step further, saying prayers are already going up for that leg and that they'll keep coming. That's not the tone you usually get out of a quarterback competition, especially not one this loud in the media. You've got analysts saying dog walk him, saying he's cooked, saying weekend at Bernie's about a guy's career, and on the other side of it, the actual competitor in that QB room is talking about praying for his recovery. It puts the whole shoulder story in a different light, because this isn't some manufactured rivalry where one guy is trying to bury the other in the press. Whoever's talking here clearly respects what Watson has been through, the surgeries, the Achilles tears, coming back from all of it at the same time he's trying to hold off a talented rookie. That's a hard place to be, and it says something that the guy chasing his job is one of the people acknowledging it out loud. It also puts more pressure on how this camp gets covered going forward. On one hand, you've got Cabot and other insiders raising real questions about whether Watson's arm can hold up. On the other, you've got the quarterback room itself staying grounded, staying respectful, not turning this into some manufactured feud for clicks. Both things can be true at the same time. The competition is real, the shoulder concern is real, and the respect between these two guys is also real. That's the version of this story that doesn't get nearly as many headlines as dog walked or he's cooked, but it might end up being the more accurate read on where this camp is actually headed once the pads come on.
From these passionate fans. I know you love this game. When I first got here, I knew these were some amazing fans. But Deshaun was treated badly. And now he has to overcome another obstacle. So I'm going to support him. I'm going to lift him up. And I'm going to be there for him. Because I see the way he fights. I see the way that he works. And I know who he is as a person and as an NFL quarterback. And that's all I have to say to address him. I'm sending up my prayers. I already prayed for his leg.
So which storyline actually decides this camp? The arm that's tailing off or the respect that's holding steady between these two? Let's put it all together. Deshaun Watson came into this offseason program as the presumed favorite, and for a while that read held up. Then minicamp hit. Shedeur Sanders started taking the bulk of the first-team reps, and Watson's arm started showing signs of wear that Cabot herself hadn't brought up about him all year. That's not nothing. A surgically repaired shoulder that hasn't handled this kind of workload since before the operation, tailing off in accuracy as reps piled up, and a rough practice with a red zone interception and multiple balls in the dirt. All of that is fair to point out heading into camp. At the same time, this competition hasn't turned into the ugly personal battle a lot of people expected. The message coming out of that quarterback room is support, not sabotage. Prayers for Watson's recovery, respect for what he's been through, acknowledgement that the fan treatment he's gotten has been rough. So Cleveland is looking at two separate stories running at once, a legitimate physical question about whether Watson's arm can survive a full training camp, and a genuinely respectful dynamic inside that quarterback room that isn't getting nearly the attention that trash talk is getting. Both are worth watching once the pads go on. So here's where this leaves us heading into camp. Deshaun Watson has the experience, the scheme knowledge, and a contract that says he should be the guy. But his shoulder is now officially part of the conversation, and that's not something Cabot was saying about him a month ago. Shedeur Sanders has the momentum, the reps, and by every account, the respect of the guy he's chasing out of that job. Training camp is going to answer the physical question. Nobody can predict how that shoulder holds up once the pads come on. But the respectable side of this story already has its answer, and it's a lot better than the headlines are making it sound. Do you think Watson's arm holds up through camp, or does Shedeur take this job outright? Let me know in the comments, smash like, and subscribe.